Hello, everybody. Welcome to the last show, our last ACM Team Zeros show in this year. We have a very special topic today, and I'm happy to introduce a few guests later on. But let's see at the agenda what we are talking about today. So right now we are at the welcome. I will be your host today, and then we are going to introduce Daniel Anderson and Ragnar Heil as our guests today. Then will talk about adoption of future intranets, and directly after that, Ragnar will show some Viva Connections in practice. So all in all, we are talking from our topic from SharePoint intranets to modern collaboration platforms. And I think that's a very interesting topic because it broadens the team experience even more. So I'm really excited that this is our last topic for this year in this Christmas special. All right, yes, who we are. In case you don't know us, sorry. We are your hosts, and we are Carolina Ketukari, who can't be with us today, but we will try our best even without her. So we have Alex here, Alexander Eggers, we have Amanda Sterner, Edita, and myself. And yes, who else do we have here today? Can we bring our guests?
Of course.
Daniel Anderson, and Ragnar Heil. There they are.
Hey, hello.
Hello
Nice
there.
to have you here. How are you
It's a
doing?
pleasure. Thank you. We're awesome. I'm really here in my afternoon, so I'm well. But the question is, Daniel, how do you feel in the middle of the night?
Well, it's either late night for me or early morning, either one. So it's an interesting time. But as we were talking off air, being here in Australia, you kind of get used to these weird times when you're working with people across the globe. So yeah.
We really appreciate you being here at that time. And maybe we should start then kind of quickly. Would you like to give us a short introduction, Daniel? Who are you? What are you doing? And why are you here?
Why am I here? Well, I'm here to have a chat about the future of intranets and the adoption of the future of intranets. As you mentioned, yes, my name's Daniel. I am a Microsoft MVP from Melbourne, Australia, currently working at Valo as a product manager and also APAC business lead. Look, I've been working in this industry for 15 years or so now. From right back from the SharePoint 2007 days, implementing a lot of SharePoint intranets, SharePoint solutions, and things like that. And now heavily active in the product space as well.
Cool. So you're a SharePoint veteran then?
Yes, you could say that. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, I'm really excited. Adoption of future intranets. What this topic is about, and please, stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, first, I guess what I want to try and do first is really set the scene a little bit. So, obviously the way we find ourselves working across the globe has changed a hell of a lot in the recent times. So we all know that this hybrid work, I guess this hybrid work model that we find ourselves in is very complex to tackle, and businesses are finding this very challenging to find and come up with the best solution, because one size really doesn't fit all to organizations. And what I'm finding and what organizations really need to start doing is really embracing the flexibility and the different work styles, and really having that trusting culture to help them navigate this period of time. And as we've seen, and as everybody watching or listening will understand, SharePoint and Microsoft Teams really has facilitated and helped us all adapt to this hybrid way of work. But there is still so much more we can do to create what we call this employee experience. Now, a lot of times what we're seeing is organizations really being introduced to, let's say, Microsoft Teams purely in a chat-based functionality or running meetings or things like that as well. And there's so much more that we can do. And we're almost coming back around full circle now, where people and organizations are really starting to think about what more can they do inside of Office 3 or Microsoft 365. And that usually incorporates SharePoint and also this concept that we've known for a very, very, very long time as the intranet. Now, it's been, solving this type of paradox really has been a challenge for quite some time. And what we are also seeing is that this digital experience really is now what we call the employee experience. Now, one thing that's very, very front and center for me as well is, the driving force of being and understanding that the driving force behind any business really is the talent that you have or the people that you have inside of your organization. So, a few stats here, and I like to draw people's attention to these type of stats as well. When we're thinking about engaged employees and the experience that they have, we can see there in the top left-hand corner that organizations as a whole with a highly engaged employee base really do have the greatest chance of success and profitability there at 21%. And you can also see that 86% of top performing companies really report that digital training and programs and that type of functionality or features really does boost the employee engagement and the performance as well. 94% of people say that they'd stay at a company longer if they invested in their learning and development. And then highly engaged employees are 12 times less likely to leave their company than those who are not. And that's a really big challenge for especially now when we're trying to keep our talented employees inside of the organization that really do help drive the company as a whole. Now, when we talk about it, an employee experience, and I take this graphic from Microsoft as well. It's a really good representation of what this actually means, and it's a system of experiences that really help organizations create this thriving culture of engaged employees and inspiring leaders. And you can see in that circle there that a good employee experience platform is made up a number of different pillars. And the ones I want to draw your attention to here are the ones in green. So communications, we're talking about announcements and news and events, company resources, so employee portals and apps and workplace and actual workplace services. So your pay, your benefits, your IT department, your legal, compliance, all of those services that make up your workplace. Insights, so analytics and surveys and feedback and sentiment analysis. And then we touch on knowledge as well. So people and expertise and documents and content. Now, all of those green circles or all of those pillars really do tie in and are facilitated by an intranet or a modern intranet or a portal. So you can see there that a good majority of what makes up a good employee experience really does get driven from the intranet. Another key aspect here, and this is really something that's very common across every organization, is the amount of wasted time that people spend searching for the right information, or indeed then not finding that right information and then ending up having to recreate that. And you can see there, a day or up to 7 weeks a year is wasted on searching or recreating information. Now, if we've got a well adopted or a well deployed intranet and structured intranet, then we can save not only give a great experience, we can actually save people a lot of time, which obviously then improves the productivity as well. Now, as I mentioned before, the way we do work now, it has really has changed forever. So with this global health crisis, it really has changed the way we work. With fewer people or fewer in-person opportunities that we do find now, or these impromptu meetings that we were accustomed to in the water cooler or the hallway, there really is a big urgency now for getting the right knowledge, the right information to the right people and at the right time. And that's really where a good intranet comes into play. Now, a few more bits of information here that might be a little bit surprising to many, because you've probably seen the messaging from Microsoft and other areas as well, that Microsoft Teams is at the forefront, and the messaging is that everybody's in Teams, and the adoption of Teams is really, really high, which it is, right? But it might be just for instant messaging or meetings or those type of activities. Whereas what we're starting to now see is, as I mentioned before, a full circle, and we're coming back to the things like SharePoint and these platforms that are part of the ecosystem to really, improve and enhance that experience as well. For a very, very, very long time, organizations really have relied primarily on email and intranet to share information amongst the entire workforce. Now, 3 out of 4 organizations still, and you can see in that graphic there, 75% still use email to distribute information, while 67% still rely on company intranets, or company intranets are still really important to be able to get that message out. So while we're seeing the messaging around Microsoft Teams, in reality, there still is a reliance, and a heavy reliance, on email as well. And a lot of where this information came from, a lot of the respondents also say that they share information inside of meetings and other file sharing tools and social networking communication tools and that type of thing. And that's where also where an intranet comes into play, is that we do need, and there's still, I believe there's still always going to be a need for that central place for an organization to store the single source of truth, and where everybody knows that they can go and they've really got knowledge in, and they can trust that the information that they are looking at is correct at any given point in time. The larger organizations, though, is where it gets a little bit more interesting as well. So 10,000 plus organizations with 10,000 plus more employees are more likely to rely on company intranets and email for sharing information. So for those that think that they're a little bit abnormal, if they're still, relying on email for sharing information, or intranets, they might seem a little bit old, maybe. That's still the norm, and that's still reality. Okay. Now, one of the, a number of things that that organizations do have, a few struggles with, is making sure that their intranet is adopted. So getting frequent use, making sure that users are actually using the intranet, coming back to the intranet, and not wasting time in other areas as well. And there's a number of ways in which I've personally seen this work really, really well, and also through other partnerships as well. The first point there is about removing friction. Now, what I'm talking about there is being able to provide the right content without constant interruptions. So regardless of where I'm working, and this kind of goes to this topic of the flow of work. So regardless of where I am in my flow, whether I'm working on a project inside of Microsoft Teams, whether I'm on the intranet inside of a browser, inside of SharePoint, I want to be able to, and we should, aim to provide a similar experience and similar access to that content and that information, regardless of where a user is, whether that be news or events or announcements or people or knowledge or anything like that. What we want to try and do is provide that information without any of that associated interruptions there as well. What's been interesting, the last few weeks actually has been interesting. I was talking to a customer here, an organization here in Australia, where they launched an intranet recently or during the pandemic, and they had previously had one before. And this goes to the next point, more specifically around governance. And during this period of time, what they've been able to do is launch an intranet remotely, but also really have a big impact on the culture of the organization. And from what they're telling me is that it's actually improved, even though they've been dispersed and working from home and not being physically in the office together. It's actually improved their communication and their sense of togetherness and their culture as a whole, because what they've been able to do is structure an intranet with a really good governance model behind it, and giving users across the organization the ability to share and create and contribute content and share their stories about what they're doing, about what their functional area is achieving in this period as well. And that really has allowed them to tell their stories and get people involved and be social as well, and be able to comment and be engaged with that content as well. So having a really good and strong governance model around your intranet is really, really important as well. And if that's backed by strong analytics, then analytics is sometimes forgotten about in a whole intranet rollout as well, or an intranet adoption strategy, because we want to really know how if we're talking about communications, we want to really know that our communications are actually working. If I publish a piece of news, then I want to know that people are actually engaging in that content, or it's reaching the right people. So with a really strong analytics platform behind the scenes, what that really does allow is to say, right, if I publish a piece of news, are HR or is finance actually consuming that information? How are they consuming it? Are they consuming it on their mobile or on their desktop or on a Mac or on a PC? Or let's say frontline workers. What we can see from analytics and what that allows us to gather is potentially the need for some more training or some more user adoption type activities, because they may not be getting or receiving or reading or consuming that content. So having a really strong analytics platform behind the scenes to measure the success of what you're putting out there is super important to improve the adoption of an intranet as well. And as I mentioned before, keeping users in the flow of their natural work, regardless of where they are. And the conversation after this will continue along that lines. And when we start to talk about potentially Viva and Viva Connections and things like that, bringing the intranet into Microsoft Teams where people are working. So we're not breaking that flow of where a user actually is. And that's a really important point as well. There's a lot of wasted time in switching context or getting out to another browser tab or opening up another application or starting some other process to switch context. And it really does take a lot of time to get back to doing what we're doing. So if we can actually bring that intranet content into the place that a user is actually working, then you are, again, saving people a lot of time. Then we talk about creating connections. So being able to discover news and stories and conversations, empowering contribution. So that story I told before about being able to allow or empower every user to be able to contribute to the intranet or to the content, to be able to tell their stories and share what they're doing and have other people engage and interact with that content as well. Being able to keep everybody informed about what's happening across the organization, with that information that is delivered to the right people at the right time, with a tailored news feed or audience targeting, so that we're really able to deliver a personal experience to the user without all the associated noise as well. Then we speak about driving alignment. And this is where we can really enforce and rally entire organizations around visions and missions and strategic priorities, which intranets are really, really good at being able to deliver that as well, giving everybody in the organization visibility and clarity into the entire work processes and connecting everyday work to companies' strategic outcomes as well. So there's a lot of little things that we can start, or we should be thinking about implementing and tackling when we're talking about improving the adoption of a modern intranet. And on the right there, you can see that even probably more so now than ever before, employees or your talent, as I like to call them, today they have a lot of different tasks that they're working on simultaneously. It might even be, I don't know, hanging the washing out or getting dinner ready or whatever the case, helping kids with school and things like that, which we haven't had to deal with before. But this frequent context switching, for example, like I mentioned about switching from email to chats, to documents, to news, to applying for leave or reading a policy, really does prevent people from getting into a productive state of mind and on a roll with what they're doing in work. And intranets really do play a big part in that, and they still will for a considerable period of time in the current landscape. Organizations are always going to need a place for controlled documents, for processes, for task-orientated things as well. And if we can start to think about all of these activities that are associated with an intranet is never done. It's a breathing organism, I guess, and it's always evolving. And being able to enhance that through these little things is only going to help improve adoption and also allow for a more productive and engaging environment as well. And we've all seen the benefits of what that actually looks like for an organization as a whole. So that being said, that is the end of my little presentation. So I hope that brought you some value. I hope there's a few little tips and tricks there that can help drive some adoption and some things that you can start to think about when we're talking about intranets.
Absolutely, thank you so much. And honestly, I feel seen when you say you spend a lot of time, or the typical users spend a lot of time searching for information and maybe not finding it. And but I never thought about the role of the internet introducer. But while you're talking, I'm remembering my own process. Is like if I need something and I'm working, like focus on my work, and then but I have to switch to the browser, then usually I have to start the VPN connection. Then I'm searching for content. I'm not finding it. I'm asking a coworker, and there are lots of little tasks that add up, and then I'm not in my focus zone anymore, and I had to get back
add up, and it does, and even, I mean, even though we might be spending a hell of a lot of time in Teams, to be honest, the search in Teams isn't that great, as we probably know. But the search across that can be done inside of an intranet to find that content is, does provide a better experience.
Absolutely, yeah. And I really like you mentioning the good governance model and the analytics that you need to make to bring the most value to the
Super important.
Yeah.
Yeah, being able to measure that and seeing that data, also helps. Not just the intranet, but at a platform user adoption as well. I mean, I mentioned before about if I'm a communications person and I send out a news article or a piece of comms, being able to measure the consumption of that can also then drive to different aspects of Microsoft 365. So the example I used there was frontline workers. So if only, let's say, 8% of frontline workers are actually consuming that, maybe there's something we need to dig a little bit deeper into there. Why aren't they consuming that? Can they access it on their phone? Do they need more training? It leads to a lot of other productivity type of things as well.
Absolutely. Then you can adapt. And as you mentioned, an intranet is something, it's never done. It's growing, it's adaptation, it's evolving. And
that's right.
That helps us bring us the most information and the most value to our employees. That was a really interesting session. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Do we have questions from the audience or from my co-hosts?
No, actually not right now, but so we can go on to the next session, I think.
Yes, please. Hey, Ragnar.
Hey, hello.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being there. It's quite late in the year, so thank you for taking the time. And before we start, would you mind to introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, that's a pleasure. I'm Ragnar Heil, living here in the middle of Germany, in the middle of nowhere between Frankfurt and Hanover. City called Kassel. On the bottom left, there is a nice castle where I live close to. And currently I'm working at Quest Software as a partner channel manager for the DACH and Benelux region. I'm also MVP of Office Apps and Services and a proud member of the Hybrid Work Tour, which I've done with Andreas Schutter and Alex here. And also I'm running the famous and beloved Alex and Ragnar show every Thursday evening, 9 p.m. and also hosting a podcast. So I'm very active here in the community and I love it. Today I'm going to talk with you all about my learnings and insights around Microsoft Viva. So that's the topic. I'm not going deeper into the other pillars of Viva, like insights and topics and learning. So I'm fully focused on Viva Connections. But nevertheless, if there are some questions regarding the other topics, please feel free to share here. But I'm going to show you a little bit about what is actually the value of Viva Connections. I'm going to talk about the steps, how to modernize from a classic Sharepoint experience into the modern Viva Connections experience. And then in the end, I'm going to share how you can also use the adoption cards extensions and a little bit of code to do your own Viva cards. So let's start here from the value. The first and most important thing is Viva is now ready for usage. So it's not longer in a preview phase, it's not longer in a beta, it's fully available for desktop and mobile. But mobile does not mean that it's available as a special app. No, you just use your browser, go to your Viva app on your browser, and then you can find it immediately. But there is no dedicated app here for iOS or for Android. And Viva looks great. It's completely responsive. It looks beautiful on a mobile device. And it's going to be the future of the intranet. But it's also a discussion which I would like to have. Is there a competition to the Sharepoint Internet? Because we have many different intranets. And the most famous is the one based on Sharepoint. And here I would do the assumption that Viva is a wonderful add-on to Sharepoint-based internet, but it is not really competing with the Sharepoint Internet. The value of Viva Connections is very clear to define. You've got a more personalized intranet because Viva Connections has got some nice cards, which are a little bit similar to Sharepoint web cards, but these Viva cards offer you very personalized information. For example, the rest of your free vacations in 2021. And then you get the information, oh, you should take your last 5 days. Or you need to approve something in the approval app. Or there is one important information around shifts in case you're using the shift application. Or there is something you want to do a request. So all these very personalized information are available in Viva Connections, next to more general things like weather, stock information, Bing News, or question and answer packages from Yammer. So there's a lot of different news categories, but the biggest value for me is compared to SharePoint normal experience that there is personalized widgets which contain my personalized informations and my call to actions which I have to do. So this is a old-fashioned, classic, boring and ugly SharePoint intranet. That's what we know, and that's what we have seen. And now the question is, how do we get and how can we move on from a classic SharePoint experience on-premise to a modern, wonderful, beautiful, sexy Viva Connections intranet? And the steps look like following. First, you need to go and move and migrate your site templates. Your site templates can be a SharePoint Classic site. You need to modernize it to a SharePoint modern communication site. Or you're using on-premises, SharePoint 27, 10, 13, 16, 19, and then you need to modernize for example, your classic SharePoint on-premise publishing site into a modern communication site. That can be done in several ways. Number one would be you use PowerShell. You can use a migration tool from third-party vendors, for example, like Quest or others on the market. There's also the Microsoft 365 CLI from Waldeck from Microsoft, which is also part of the PnP group. So that's also a very rich thing. Or you use the new PnP framework. It's called the PnP Transformation Framework from Paolo, also a wonderful MVP. You can also do it with the more classic and legacy CSOM API, or last but not least, you just start from the scratch, from a vanilla, blank, new, modern communication site, which is now the default setting. So you cannot create classic sites anymore in SharePoint. You only can create modern sites. But for modern sites, we have team sites. They don't work. You need to have modern communication sites, and then you can have a Viva experience. So that's number one, modern communication sites, migrated or however you transform them. Second, you need to change your information architecture because your modern communication site need to have the home site enabled. So you can only have one single home site, and that needs to be the one you're choosing for Microsoft Viva Connections. Number two, you can define the hub structure. We call it always beautiful hubifying. Then you need to set the global navigation to on. You need to enable it. Then you can go deeper into the audience targeting, enable mega navigation. So that's part for the information architecture. Then you do the more UX changes and UI changes, like branding of the hub sites and branding of the sites in general, adding Yammer to it, stream integration, logos, site design, header and footer. And here the big recommendation is, please look into Sharepoint Lookbook. It's a wonderful, rich way of getting free, wonderful SharePoint templates. And there are, I think, like 10 or 10-ish different SharePoint themes, and they are all for free. They don't look only beautiful, they also have a lot of value, like COVID-19, crisis communication and learning pathways. So they are also functional, rich, and not just beautiful. Then the search experience, you can add more connectors and acronyms and taxonomies, profile a metadata, and then at the end, future topics. You can also go into Viva Learning, organize and add Viva topics, and go deeper into Viva Insights. So a lot of things about SharePoint monetization on your journey to Viva Connections. Are there some questions so far? I don't see currently any comments.
Nope.
If my colleagues have some experiences here and they would like to add something to this journey, then please share it with me. That's currently the way how I see it. So
Well, I had to hear the
please.
colleagues.
So what do you think? Does this make sense? This kind of journey to Viva Connections. Also, some things around the adoption side. That's your core topic. You are the subject matter specialist for adoption. What is the most difficult part here? Where do we need you in this chain, in this game? What is most difficult?
First of all, what I see is that you need to know more behind the scenes from all these Viva parts. What we see here, it even looks for the normal end user just to open it, and it is there, and it's not the way it is. So we need more of the insights that you just shared with us. What's behind this to go this way, and so it's not that easy as it might look in the first moment. Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, very good point. Okay, let's go a little bit further. And now is the most difficult time of my whole presentation. If you could pray to the demo gods, then this would be very appreciated. Now it's time for demoing. So let's start first here with the Viva connection. Viva connection is available in my Microsoft Teams experience. So on the one hand, yes, I could also consume Viva connections inside of SharePoint. That would look very different. That would look exactly the same. Let me just go here a little bit back, that you see the whole SharePoint frame around. So that's the SharePoint Modern Communication page. I think this top part is already known to you. That's a very standard default page. And the Viva part is currently here where I have the Viva dashboard. Currently, there are two different Viva parts. I have the Viva Connections dashboard part and the Viva Connections feed, which is powered by Yammer. But currently, Yammer is a little bit unfriendly. Currently, Yammer is not pulling information. So I was feeding Yammer, but currently the feed doesn't work. So let's focus here on the dashboard part. That works better. But here, in theory, you would see Yammer conversations which are highlighted and which are most relevant and most personalized for you. And then you would see Yammer conversation, and also you could reply and you could like in Yammer. But currently, for some reasons, it's not working. But it has worked a couple of weeks ago. Let's see. So here we have the dashboard, and that looks the same, like embedded into Teams. But I just did it here in Teams. And if you ask yourself, how can I get this beautiful app in Teams, which is on the same level, like the Insights app for Viva or the Learning app for Viva, then you need to do the following. You can run a Viva PowerShell script to get it running, or you go into the new developer portal and do it here. In the past, it was called the Microsoft Teams App Studio, but App Studio is now outdated, and now it's called the developer portal. So that's something what you can do here, and then you will get this beautiful, nice app. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so then you get this nice app here, Viva Connections. But it looks the same like in SharePoint, easy to consume. But to do some modifications, I need to jump back into SharePoint, because in SharePoint I can see my editing button here, which I need. So let's do the following. I will go directly here into my editing button, and here I've got the full dashboard, and that's the way how I can do changes, like for example changing the amount of Viva connections. So if I only want to have like 3, then it would like this way. Currently I'm using the full power here and displaying 9. So that's the first thing what I can do. I can also go and remove things. I can copy things. I can edit web parts. So that's the first action what I can do here. Okay, let's do another exercise. And go deeper into the... One second. That's always actually Viva is very, very easy, but sometimes it's a little bit tricky to jump into this right path here. Give me 1 second. I would like to jump into the editing part. One second, maybe I republish it. I already told you, so that's the time when it's good to pray to the demo gods. Here, this is the part. That's very strange. Because usually you can see here now the amount of other apps which you can list. Okay, let's start here. In this current Viva app, I have got several apps. The first thing is completely taken from Viva Insights. It's showing me some progress, and here it would directly go into the Viva Insight experience. The second tab is all about Bing News. The third one is a Q&A pair running from Yammer. The next one are the assigned tasks, which would go directly into Planner. And then I've got more apps here running, like the Shift apps. Currently, I'm not using here Shifts. This is an app to the ACM Europe, which I've changed as a preparation. And then this is the approval way where I can easily go and do approvals immediately. Then this is another thing which I have, for example, created. That's the Service Health app. And this is currently showing me some progress about my environment. So currently I've got some issues here in the Exchange environment. So this is a nice mixture of news, Q&As from Yammer, task management things, shifts, links to outside pages, and then also internal pictures, internal information. And now I would like to show you how to get deeper into the coding part. But for this experience, we need to go deeper here inside. So while I'm let me just find out why it's so strange here. Because here it should show a separate plus button, and the separate plus button should be able to give me another card, and that's currently missing. Let me just delete one here.
We get an information from Daniel. Daniel, would you like to add this here? Come in. What did you just write?
Yeah, just hit the cog in the top right-hand corner.
Yes.
In the SharePoint bar at the top, and the Office 365 bar.
In
right up the top, the settings icon.
Yep.
Click Set up Viva Connections. View dashboard.
Yep. Okay. Super. Thank you. Here we are, and here we have the mobile view, and here we have the desktop view. And in the desktop view here, that's what I mean. Here is the plus sign, and here you can see the amount of different Viva cards. So here you can choose a team app, for example. The team app needs to be is something what you can also use here. For example, let's take a team app, which is called, for example, the Contoso app, or a Power app, for example, News, Viva, or some other tabs or apps which you have already installed. So that's something which is useful. Let me just take here the existing Power app. That's something what you can integrate here. And then from the card side, you can use a card designer. So that's very useful. In Card Designer here, you can use adaptive cards extensions. the preferred part would be you go to adaptivecards.io samples, and here you find different kind of samples. For example, you would want to fly on vacation in the next days, and you want to get more information about your travel schedule or flight update, and then you can just use it, and then you see more about your flights. Or you would like to have an ordinary input form, or a stock updates, or you would like to see a weather video or a product video. And in case you would like to have a weather card, then you just go here and just copy and paste the data JSON code and put them directly into it. So here I'm just calling it the header, I'm calling it weather Redmond, and then again, and here Redmond, sorry. And here the important thing is you need to go to the quick view, otherwise you are not able to see it in quick view again. And this is now, what did I do? Data JSON, yeah. So click it into the data JSON again, and then go back and go to the template JSON and delete it and paste again. And now if we're praying to the demo gods, hopefully, oh, there is a technical, haha, somebody didn't pray. So let's republish. That's interesting. Let me just do a quick check here if I did something wrong. Card designer, weather Redmond, show quick view. Daniel, do you see something what I did wrong with copy and paste? I've done this example a few times, but I've never seen this. Okay, let's just try another example and go to the stock update JSON. Once again, card designer, stock MSFT. Once again, show quick view. And then this is the, what did it? Data JSON. Here we are. And last but not least, the template JSON. Okay, then there is definitely something wrong here currently in Viva, because this example has always worked. Okay, here we are. So that's the stock 129.8, and that's the weather. Okay, so it's not the right date, but you get the idea. So the value of Viva Connections is that you can get personalized information, and you can really start adding your Viva Connections adaptive card extensions with zero and with no code, just copy and paste. But if you are deeper into coding, you can directly go and also use the Yemen code. That's something what we've shared here. So that's the way how Yemen is going to work. I'm going to share the link later, and with Yemen it's going to create a Visual Studio project, and then you have got everything what you need in a real fully shaped Visual Studio project, and you can write your own code. So that should be sufficient for you. And when I go back into Teams, then my Viva Connections cards should be visible here. So once again, click on the all. Yeah, and here we are. So that's it. Okay, let's summarize. You are able to create Viva Connections extensibility using web parts, using the ACE adaptive cards extensions and application customizers. And a lot of examples are done by the Sharepoint framework community. So kudos to Vesa for for hosting and for hosting this community, which is awesome. It's going to meet every single week and also publish the meetings on YouTube. So that's the most important thing here. Use Yeoman or use Yeoman and also the adoption card extension examples. Okay, so to wrap up, that's the old classic SharePoint experience, what we already know. Oh, sorry, it's not SharePoint Classic, it's modern, but that's the what we already know, using content services, your internet in your pocket with intelligent search. It's beautiful, but it's more, in many cases, it's just a standard internet what everybody can see. It's not really personalized, and the biggest value of Viva is the personalization, that you get your own values, your own data, which is relevant for you in a modern way. All the informations which I've shared are on this slide here, and the most, maybe the most important ones around connections are the documentation and the new learning pathways, which are very helpful. So I think it takes like 2 hours to go through the learning pathways, and then you can also find more about the Sharepoint Lookbook, which I've mentioned, and also the PNP portal, where you find everything around how to modernize from a classic SharePoint experience into a modern experience, which is needed, like modern communication pages. Thank you so much. You know how to find me, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ragnar. That was very interesting. Shame that the demo doesn't work as planned, but we've all been there, I guess. So I do have some questions. So can you show the screen again, the dashboard again?
Yes, of course.
Maybe real quick, because I just have some question if I got this right.
Yep. So here we are. Oh, sorry. Here we are.
Here we go. Okay, so if I get this right, I can introduce different apps here, because what we see is not only content from SharePoint, but the assigned tasks and shifts are different apps, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those different apps are all summed up here. That was the idea.
Exactly.
When I first started working with Teams, that was the idea, like everything is in Teams, everything that I need, but in Teams, yet I'm switching between apps on the left-hand side, right? I'm switching the whole time. If I use Viva Connections, I have everything in there, and I don't have to switch between browsers and different frames in that.
That's a very good point. So so Teams is moving into a Russian, into a Russian babushka, where
Yes,
one mother is on top of the other. So actually, the idea was, yes, you're just using your left navigation here in Teams, and then all your relevant apps are just on the left. But now you have one app which is also, it's an app which is covering apps. So we have the concept of major apps and then some sub apps, which are inheriting apps. So that's a very good point.
And I think
people,
sorry,
please
go on.
Maybe I'm purely speculating. Maybe the apps are not so. Customers and companies are not really using apps so much. So maybe Microsoft is trying to boost the apps a little bit more by putting them together and gluing them together in Viva Connections, because it's more natural to have the most personalized and most relevant app content nuggets in one dashboard. Then that's also the approach of companies like Valo. That's what they are born for. They don't care so much about the apps. They care about the content nuggets and the content pieces. And it doesn't matter if the information comes from Yammer, Teams, OneDrive, or SharePoint. It doesn't matter. It's more about the value on the user interface side, because users don't care so much about the workloads like we do sometimes.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that the things that Daniel actually described, how to bring the most value to the employee, that makes it kind of easier actually to customize it specifically for your employers. And so that means all those apps I'm seeing here, like the tasks and shifts and news, I can choose them, or is it always it's first insights, then it's news, then it's Q&A? Is that fixed, or can I choose the cards that are shown here?
Yes, you can choose it. So if Yeah, exactly. So if you go out here, you can do all the things you would like to do. If you say, okay, listen, this news is for me completely irrelevant, you just delete it, and then the card would be deleted. But that's something where you need to have rights. So not
Obviously.
every user has it. So the information which is coming from a Yammer Q&A app or from Insights or from Bing News can be personalized, but to add cards, you need the rights here on this Microsoft on the Sharepoint modern communication side.
Okay, I see. But that gives me.
And this is the amount. Maybe that's your question. So this is the amount of existing apps. So that's currently which is out of the box there, except the ones called list orders and manage orders. These are examples here from Paolo, our MVP colleague, but the other ones are default ones by Microsoft.
So the card designer is per default as well?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I really like the adaptive cards.
Exactly. Yeah. So that also means that I got questions like, okay, how does the API look like for Viva Connections? When will there be an API? Because I'm a developer. I said, no, that's your friend here. Card designer is your friend. You just code. You're just using JSON code. You just use JSON code here from these templates, or you just know how to write JSON, and then you can just start coding here. So that's the way how you can customize and extend and expand Viva Connections.
Maybe we should think about doing another session, maybe in the next years, about how to improve or raise your adoption rate to Microsoft Teams with adaptive cards, because there are so many samples on this side already.
Yeah.
But in the community are so much more samples and amazing things are possible.
Because currently these samples here on this website are they're available since minimum 1.5 years. But here we need more samples, and I would love to see. Yeah, so this was here updated in May 2020. So I would love to see more examples, and also the community which Vesa is hosting, they are sharing samples. Yeah.
Yes, in the PNP community there are adaptive card samples. That's true.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's very great. So Paolo was sharing one example around, let's call it ERP warehouse. Then you can see how many products are in stock, and he was reading out an external database running on Azure, and he was showing how to read out this stock using adaptive card extension, and then triggering the database and reading out the values.
So in the end, it's the usual story. The community really brings some very good value here.
Exactly, yeah. So the community is always there for inspiration. Which kind of cards do we have? Because otherwise, we would be a little bit stuck, like in the typical things. Yes, we can show weather. Yes, we can show stock quotes, but in some news. But that's not interesting for customers. Customers want to have personalized informations for their most important things, and this can be done approvals from Microsoft Teams, but most important, approvals from your ERP, from your CRM. So here we need Salesforce integration and Dynamics integration and SAP integration, because if we are preaching that everybody is living now in Teams and everybody is using Teams all day long, then we also need to make sure that these important kind of requests and approvals coming from SAP, Salesforce, Dynamics and Co, and Oracle and others, that they are also visible here in Teams, and that means in Viva Connections.
Yeah,
this would offer value. Just Bing News is too weak.
Yeah, exactly. So to take it away from today's session, from both of the sessions, a good intranet can bring a lot of value and help your employees actually to focus on their work. And Viva Connections can really help to bring this intranet to the place where the people are working and brings it all together, right? And that, I think, is a lot to think about for somebody who is working in communications or who is designing intranets and working with their users.
Yeah, the whole story is not really new. So you could also say, okay, listen, what's the difference between Viva Connections adaptive card extension and the Sharepoint web part? it looks the same. It's just the thing that ordinary web parts from SharePoint are not running in Viva, are not running in Teams. So it's just a way of embedding this small content snippets and nuggets into, because the web parts are not, they could exist, but then you need to embed SharePoint into Teams. And here it's another way around, but the whole idea is the same.
Yeah, but it's making it easier.
It's just a different approach, and hopefully with this new approach of using adaptive cards extension, it's going to make things easier and also making adoption and change management easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you two very much for your input and your sessions. I think they were really, really great. Learned a lot today and lots of to think about during the holidays. And the time is up already. So I would say thank you all for your patience and for joining us today. Whatever you celebrate, have nice holidays. Take care of yourselves and see you next year.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.
Goodbye in the next year.